Under the dark violet sky, the car devoured the road toward the mountains. Nick and Beth touched the lock, turned on the light, and a soft golden glow spread across the cabin. Pine walls, a stone fireplace, the faint scent of oil paint. Then the studio door creaked open. Easels, unfinished nudes, portraits hidden in drawers. Nick stared, his heart tightened. The memories were there, close enough to touch, yet slipping away. Outside, the experimental aircraft with no wings or tail remained a mystery. Inside, the watch and the dreams of a golden-haired girl, a pale green tree, and a blood-red sky demanded an answer. If Nick truly returned on the wreck of that plane with no signal, no witness then who was flying it, and the black car tailing Beth, who sent it. As for Nolan Bryce, was he still a friend, or the one tracking him now? Coming up next on Good Story, we open the drawer of paintings, and maybe the door to memory itself. For all portraits, one hidden truth about Nick's real life. And the first clue leading straight back to the crash that should never have happened. Don't blink, because with one more brushstroke, the past will return or shatter forever. Want to see some of your favorite models? He nodded numbly, and she drew open a drawer, pulling out for large all paintings done on commercial painting boards. The first two were of Beth, one nude and the other semi-nude, with only her lovely breasts exposed. The other two were of a girl unfamiliar to him, one seated before a table with a vase of flowers, a good-looking girl with jet black hair and a soft, warm face. The next painting showed her as a Hawaiian dancer, skin a trifle darker. She was pretty, but her face and body didn't ring a bell. "Who is she?" he asked. "Her name is Janet Holman. She lives 4 or 5 miles from here, on her father's farm," Beth said. "You have her file over there with your records. Doesn't this ring a bell?" "No," she looked at him softly. "I hope it'll come back, darling." He reached out and pulled her to him. "It'll come back," he whispered. "Come on. I want to build a fire in that fireplace. It's cool in here, even if it is summer." They went back out to the front room. Beth found kindling while Nick wadded newspapers and stuffed them in the fireplace. She brought it. He lit the fire. When it was going good, he added a couple of logs, snapped off the light, and grinned. "I like firelight," he told her. "It's restful." She smiled back. "Restful? I think it's sexy," she teased. She had kicked off her pumps and was lying before the glow of the hearth on the thick rug. He arranged the mesh screen before the fire and laid down beside her. "Sexy? Huh, you H her," she said. "I don't know, darling. ... The warmth of the fire warms me up, I guess." He grinned and dropped his head to the cushions of her breasts. Her fingers played in his hair. "I'm glad," he told her. "You used to be. That used to be our favorite way of spending an evening, lying in front of a fire." Nick asked. "Not just any fire, darling. This particular fire sounds like fun," he mused and rolled over to kiss the ripe redness of her lips. Her tongue stabbed a blade of passion at him and her arms pulled him close. Then, after a moment, she stood up. He propped himself on one elbow and looked at her. Her smile was impish as she unfastened the buttons of the white blouse and pulled it from her navy blue skin. Her fingers unhooked the snaps of the bra and dropped it to the floor beside the blouse. The firelight was golden against her breasts and the flat expanse of her stomach. Nick felt the thunder run. It slammed through his veins with the holocaust of a napalm bomb exploding as she unzipped the skirt and dropped it into a puddle on the rug. He watched, pounding, as she stepped free, clad only in the pinkish transparency of her panties. Then they too were gone, and Beth was smiling down at him, passion spearing from her eyes. "Will I still do?" she asked. "Do what?" he croaked. "You know, will I still do as a model?" He chuckled. "A model, sweetheart, is a small imitation of the real thing. You don't look imitation to me." He grabbed her arm, but she jerked away. "Oh no, you don't. You have to undress too." He grinned and peeled off his clothes quickly. She came into his arms then and they made love, letting the glowing warmth of the fire caress them hotly. His hands smoothed her breasts while his mouth worked at the fire that was coming to life throughout her body. "Just like old times?" he asked softly. "Better, darling. ... Much better." Sometime near midnight, Beth took the car and went home. Nick poured a cup of the coffee she had made for him and went back into the study to look at the paintings a second time. It was good, professional work, and he wondered if he could do the same stuff again. Hell, he decided, it'll be a long time until I get back at an easel. He finished the coffee and went up to bed. It took a while to get to sleep. Thoughts of the wrecked plane, Beth, the strange men and Nolan Bryce kept running around in his head without finding answers to the enigmas they presented. Finally he slept. He was looking at himself, in the dream, but it was not in a mirror. He was standing inside a polished room, and the other Nick Danson lay on a bed wrapped in sleep. Nick blinked at the still duplicate of himself on the bed and turned away to look at the room. It wasn't large, it was some kind of bedroom, well lighted although no lights could be seen. The walls seemed to glow, and everything was of bright metal. The mirror caught his eye and he saw himself in the same blue and yellow uniform he'd worn before. The other Danson lay asleep. That Danson was dressed in blue dress pants and a white shirt. The tie had been loosened at his throat and the clothing was wrinkled badly. Suddenly the other Danson opened his eyes and looked at Nick. For a moment he appeared startled, then he smiled. The smile erupted in a chuckle that became a laugh. The other Danson's face grew large and full, roaring with laughter at Nick until the scene changed. It changed from odd curiosity to absolute horror, the kind of horror that comes only from peals of loud, echoing laughter rolling through the caverns of the mind. Nick awoke gasping, drenched in sweat. His heart hammered in his chest like a drum, threatening to leap to his throat at any moment. He looked around anxiously for Beth, but the silence reminded him she had gone back to the city and her job. Dawn was breaking and dim light filtered through the unwashed windows. There was little point in trying to sleep now. Might as well get his clothes on and try to start unraveling a long thread of odd events. He pulled on his clothes slowly and slid his feet into his shoes, wondering where to begin the climb back to himself. With people closing in on all sides, the whole damned thing seemed impossible. He hooked the last button on his shirt, stuffed it into his pants, and headed for the kitchen. He warmed up last night's coffee and it tasted like warm sulfuric acid, but it brought him to full consciousness. Even if his stomach objected to it, when he had finished the coffee, he found the library in the den and began reading a few titles. A lot could be told from a man by his reading habits. There were books by Bridgman, Zandenberg and Loomis. Almost everything on the shelves pertained to art in some form or another except for the last row. There were about 15 science fiction volumes, mostly collections of short stories, from Asimov to A. Van Vogt. He had a fleeting idea to start reading them to see if his strange dreams came from the pages. Then he rejected it as too time-consuming. He shoved a copy of H. Bean Piper back onto the shelf and straightened. To hell with it. He had the whole house to search before fumbling through something as far out as science fiction. He searched systematically. When he finished, it was known. He knew a lot about the cabin, but damned little about himself. The cramped attic held only old pictures, odd furniture, and ruined clothes. The 3 bedrooms revealed nothing, just the usual gear. Of the downstairs, only the art studio and the den library were of interest. Even these places shed no light upon the ghost of the man haunting him. The studio contained the trappings of an artist, battered but intact. The den was wall to wall like a woodsman's lodge, filled with books, stuffed heads, and of course, the guns. The rack on the far side held bullet-loading equipment, cans of DuPont powder on the floor, and above, the weapons enough to hold off a small revolution. 2 handguns, 3 rifles, and a shotgun. A Smith & Wesson .38 Model 36, and a Ruger Blackhawk .44 Magnum like the old Peacemaker. A Marlin saddle carbine, a Winchester African rifle .58 bore, and a Stevens .40 single-barrel shotgun. Nick grinned at the arsenal and took the .44 Magnum down to clean it. It wasn't too bad, even after being idle. The holster and gun belt still contained enough oil to make them pliable. He slipped the Magnum into the holster, buckled the gun belt at his waist, letting it hang low. To hell with it, he thought. If those 2 characters show up, at least I'll have an edge. He pulled 5 .44 special slugs from the belt and loaded the weapon, careful to leave the hammer on the empty chamber. Then he decided to see how good he was with it after all this time. Behind the house, where the hill rose sharply, Nick lined up 5 cans at the base of the rise. He snapped off 5 fast shots as quick as the action would operate. All 5 cans were blown to hell. Stunned but satisfied, he reloaded the revolver and dropped it back into the holster. He prowled the grounds aimlessly, looking but not sure what for. Beyond lawn furniture and tools, only the creek remained, a fast-running stream, barely a foot deep but full of trout holes. He walked along the gurgling water for a while, then went back to the house, still unsure what to do. He shoved the door open and froze. She was just like the painting, her raven black hair hung loose and free, shorts and halter revealing warm flesh rising and falling temptingly. Nick stood there, speechless. It was Janet. The light in her eyes made him wonder what kind of man he had been. She gasped with pure pleasure, flung herself into his arms, planting the ripe sweetness of her lips squarely on his. "Janet," he managed, but she had a stranglehold on him. "Russian?" Bryce asked, looking at Sam Morgan. The dark-complected Fed pulled the mangled cigar from his mouth and pointed it toward the twisted wreckage. On the far side, Cartwell and Dixon looked. "Why not?" Morgan asked. "It seems outlandish." Somehow, Morgan grinned, his pig-like teeth flashing. "You small-town cops are good, but you look at everything from a local viewpoint. In our business, you broaden, you might say. Look at the facts. Nolan, defense spotted the thing up north. Radar clocked it at over 2,000 miles per. So it crashed and we find no wings, no tail. And I have the hunch that the damned thing ran on nuclear power, atomic." Nolan whispered, amazed. While Morgan spoke, all Bryce could think of was the watch. How could Nick pilot such a craft? "You mean atomic power?" Morgan nodded. "See that funnel-shaped gizmo with the round ball-like affair?" He pointed to what was probably the tail of the ship, not the part smashed into the ground. "That's a nuclear reactor," Sam went on. "Uncle Sam doesn't have anything in the air with that kind of power. Maybe a few engines on test, but nothing flying yet. Then it is Russian, that's my guess. No other country would build it. Great Britain could, but theirs would show the red and blue targets. To me, it looks like a glorified U-2 on their side." Bryce didn't answer, staring at the wreckage. A million thoughts burst in his brain. Nick Danson was in this, he flew it. Where did he get it? Was he a Russian spy? He lit a cigarette. How come it didn't become a Hiroshima, if atomic powered? Morgan grinned at him like a kid. "I said atomic energy, not atomic bombs. There's a difference in, hey, Sam, come here." Both turned. Across the wreckage, Cartwell held up a piece of metal, excited. "Come on, Nolan." Sam grinned. "Let's see what my buddy dug up. ... I'll bet it's a Russian manufacturer's trademark." They trotted over. "Russian, huh?" asked Sam. "Russian? Hell," Cartwell snorted. "It looks like a cross between Chinese and Arabic." Sam studied it, then passed it to Nolan. He didn't know languages, but these marks resembled Chinese, yet weren't the same. Strange, unfamiliar. "There are similar markings on the control panel," Dixon said. "Crap," Sam Morgan snorted. "I say Russian." "How about you, partner?" Cartwell frowned. "I'd rather let an expert look this piece over." He turned to Nolan. "Where can we find an expert, Bryce?" "Everett College is the only place I know." "Okay, we'll give them a try." "Where's Lieutenant Peters?" "Over there," Sam said, chewing his men. "Sam, remind him to keep everyone off the site." "I hate newsboys scooping us." Sam nodded. "And left anything for me?" Dixon asked. "No, just arrange to haul it to Everett, but check with me first." They wrapped the metal in Cartwell's jacket and headed through the forest. Professor Nichols, short and frail but brilliant, met them at Everett College. A famed linguist, he peered with sharp small eyes. Bryce introduced everyone. Cartwell handed him the metal. "We'd like to know about the writing," Sam said. Nichols studied it, then smiled thinly, as if at a bad gag. "Are you playing some sort of joke?" "The government doesn't pay us to play jokes," Cartwell said. "Do you know the language?" Nichols shook his head. "I know every spoken and many dead languages. I don't know this one." "You're serious?" "Yes, no language on Earth, dead or alive, matches this. We aren't joking," Nolan said. "Then someone plays a joke on you. No linguist can identify it. Where did you get this?" "Sorry, Professor, can't disclose," Cartwell said. "Also, please forget it." "Government business, of course. Is there anything else?" "I have a class in 3 minutes. No, that's all, thank you." As the door closed, silence fell. Cartwell stared out the window, Nolan at the strange writing, like an ethnologist over missing link bones. "What now?" Sam asked caller Martian for his opinion. "It's not funny, Sam. Don't I know it?" Sam shot back. "We've got some kind of tiger by the tail here. Bigger than the Kremlin. How will this sound in a report?" Cartwell snorted. "You write it. You go to hell. I like my job and I don't want to get booted for a science fiction twist. What's next?" Nolan asked. "Back to the wreck, I guess." Cartwell shrugged. Sam slammed his fist on the table. "John, don't you see? If the professor's right and this gibberish isn't Earth language, we got problems. We've got a flying saucer, a spaceship." "My God, Sam, cut it out. I refuse to believe in them." Sam snickered. "Doesn't matter what you believe. Like a Ford V8, it's there, Jesus," Cartwell whispered. "And worse, we didn't find a body, unless remote controlled. It had a pilot wandering now. A wounded little green man running around trying to hitch a ride back to Mars. It'd be funny if it weren't so damned serious. We'd better get back," Cartwell said. "Maybe rescue squads found something." "Coming, Bryce," Nolan grinned. "With little green men running around, then serious. I'll be up later. I have something to do down here," Morgan snorted. "See if you can find a Buck Rogers ray gun." They left. Nolan sat behind his wheel, watching them drive off, mind whirling. Flying saucers, Martians, little green men, impossible, ridiculous, but true. You couldn't refuse to believe in lightning. It all fit, crazy but true. Nick Danson, artist, disappeared 13 months ago. Every agency failed to find him. It wasn't the Earth, it was the sky. Martians, or whatever they were, had taken him. Why? To replace him, to send an alien in his place. That explained the watch. It wasn't Nick piloting, but an alien, Beth. Had an alien, posing as Nick, reached Beth and used her for their plan? How many missing persons were tied to this? How many aliens walked Earth now? To hell with that, Nolan roared at himself. The important thing is Beth. He had to stop it before something happened. He started the car, slammed it into gear and gunned it out onto the street, tires screaming protest. Janet was more than a beautiful woman and a good model. She was white heat and surging womanhood all dolled up in a body like that of a French movie star. She was as wanton as a Polynesian dancer and as demanding as a nympho. Lying there beside her relaxed nakedness, Nick Danson felt like another man, a tired one. He laid his hand over the swelling rise of her breast and slid it down the flat velvet of her stomach. She made a small sound in her throat and kissed him on the cheek with lips like branding irons. "I'm glad you have amnesia," she cooed against his ear. "Why? For God's sake." She snuggled the curling warmth of her body against him and chuckled. "Because of this, you used to kiss me, but that was all. I wanted more, but not you." He blinked at the ceiling at her words. She'd tricked him. She'd cheated. All the time he'd figured she was some sort of mistress, but in his other life he'd never given her a tumble. It was funny, in a way. "You mean ... we never ... double quotes nope." She chuckled again. "Aren't I a rat?" "Vixen is more like it. That's a good word, I like it." "Janet Vixen. How would you like to kiss Janet Vixen, Nick Danson?" "Suppose I get another knock on the head," he suggested, "and I lose the memory of all this, too." "Then what? I won't embarrass you in front of company. Come on, kiss me again, stranger." He rolled over and kissed her again and, tired or not, desire surged through him. Her small hands dug into his shoulders, her teeth nibbled his neck, and she laughed at the risks of wild love. Nick thought if he tried to get serious, she'd bounce him fast. But it was impossible to think of that with her. Besides, he was having too much fun, even if he was left too weak to move. "I have to go, lover," she said finally. "Beth might come up, and she'd be apt to get a little put out if she caught us in bed. That's putting it mildly," he grinned. "Besides, I have to start trying to find out about myself. Do me a favor and don't." She pecked him lightly. "I like the new Nick Danson a hell of a lot better. Come on," snapped my bra. They climbed out of bed and he helped her into her shorts and halter. She kissed him lightly again, said, "Goodbye, lover," and bounced out into the hall, leaving him naked in the bedroom. What a world, he thought for the 100th time, and began to gather his clothes. When he put his pants on, His wallet dropped from the hip pocket and flopped open on the floor. He picked it up, his eyes noticing the card in the plastic window. A selective service registration certificate. Written, small scar on right forearm. He glanced at his arm and froze. There was no scar. A man cannot lose a scar, he told himself. He checked the card again. It was his, Nicholas Howard Danson. But the scar was missing. He was not Nicholas Howard Danson. Who was he? What was going on? Had he killed the real Danson and stolen his ID? Why? Was he escaping from crime? Was he a criminal? What did the strange dreams have to do with it? Numbly he dressed, strapped on the point for Magnum, hands shaking. It was only a matter of time before those at the wreck figured it out and came after him. He had to get out. The screech of brakes startled him. A police car in the lane. A plainclothes cop got out. It could only be Nolan. Bryce pulled his police positive and headed toward the house. Nick hauled out his Magnum and fired. Bryce dived behind a bush as the .44 slug barely missed. The .38 barked back, splinters flying. "Come out, you fool," Bryce roared. "You go to hell," Nick yelled and fired again. "Who tipped you off, Nolan?" "Beth. You left Danson's watch where your flying saucer cracked up." Bryce snapped another shot. "Flying saucer," Nick blinked. What the hell was that cop talking about? "What did you do with Nick?" Bryce roared. Nick emptied the Magnum wildly, never hitting him, then reloaded frantically. As Bryce sprinted toward the house, Nick yanked the hammer back, but suddenly, in the yard, Detective Lieutenant Nolan Bryce vanished into thin air. His yells rose, fading straight upward. Nick stared dumbfounded. What the hell was going on? Then a shout at the creek. It was the two men from Andy Holcomb's gas station. Panicking, Nick fired and the blonde dived for cover. "The dumb bastard is shooting," the blonde yelled. "Let's get the hell out before he hits something." Nick snapped another shot to hurry them along, just as Beth's car rocked up the road. She leapt out, yelling for him. He went down to meet her, gun in hand. Her face was drained of color. "Nick, where's Nolan?" "I ... double quotes, oh my god, Nick, have you killed him?" "I couldn't hit him," Nick told her. "I emptied the Magnum and he disappeared into the air," his eyes wild. "Right into the air," he added inanely. Everything was crazy. He wasn't Nick Danson. Beth stared. "You killed him," she breathed. No, he vanished. Honest to God, I never even came close." "I might as well have thrown rocks. Men do not disappear into thin air," she said. "Forget that. How'd he know I was here?" she sighed. "He found the watch I gave you years ago. It was at the crash site. He came to me, warning my life was in danger." "Nick, what have you done?" "I dunno," he lied. "How'd he know where to find me?" "He helped you build the place. Now where is he?" "God damn it, Beth, I told you, he vanished. Stop yelling at me." "Then believe me, it happened. If you find his body out there, I'll eat it," she cried and hugged him. "I want to believe you, but men can't vanish." Bryce did. "All right, if you say so." "Now what?" "I don't know. I have to remember what happened. It's the only way this crazy whirl will make sense." She nodded. "Let's go in. Let me have the gun, dear." He stared. "You think I'm nuts crazy?" "Of course not, darling. But give me the gun." Resigned, he handed it over. "I don't blame you." "Hell, I think I'm crazy too." She didn't argue. They sat staring into the dead fireplace as dusk fell. Beth started the fire, then kissed him. "Why don't we get some sleep, honey? I'll be up later," he said. She went to bed. He sat lost in thoughts, trying to find the key to his past. Bits and snatches came, but incoherent. Dreams suggested one conclusion, too fantastic for belief. He never heard the door open slowly. A handkerchief of chloroform clamped over his face. He struggled, but powerless. The chloroform got to him. He couldn't breathe. He slept. The ship came to rest upon a flat, ochre-colored plain beside a brilliant white city encased in thick, heavy walls. There was a dull pain in his head and fire in his leg, but he was alive. He lay limply upon the bed while First Spacer Nav applied him with honeywine to dull the pain. He grinned, studying the blonde giant's warm, friendly face. He was among friends now. The tall, yellow-eyed Thistians had failed to kill him and Nav had whisked him away into the violet sky. "Thought we'd lost you, Loz." Nav grinned. "You almost did," he replied. He choked on the Thista honeywine. "Haven't you anything else? Something from Darkham?" Sorry, friend, Narva grinned, but be glad to get this. The 36th Command has been drinking up even this. I'll see you later. In the hospital, all right. Narva, the big man, started away, but Loz stopped him by grabbing his sleeve. Narva, yes, thanks a lot. First Spacer Narva punched him playfully on the arm and left the compartment. The medical men came in, hooking anti-gravity capsules to the bed and setting them into motion. The cot-like stretcher lifted and the men towed him to the freight elevator. As they stowed him into the ambulance, he saw Navi's car skimming toward Commandant's building to make a report. No doubt Commandant Imri would be coming to see him later on, Nick groaned. Another dream that was beginning to clear things up a little. He's coming around. The words weren't English, but Nick understood them. The big blonde cursed softly. Speak English, Thesis, someone might hear you. There hasn't been anyone around this farm in months, Thesa replied, lapsing into English. But if you're getting particular, don't call me Thesa. Nick opened his eyes and blinked. It was the two watchdogs, the blonde and his sandy-haired friend. The giant was grinning at him. Hello, he beamed, remember me? No? Who in hell are you? Nick struggled to get out of the chair he'd been dumped in, but was pushed back firmly. When you didn't report, we went out. The old guy at the gas station covered for you, so we had to watch Beth's house. Use tricks, Loz. Why didn't you make contact? You're Nav, Nick stared. You're the man in the dream. Dream, what's wrong with you, Loz? You refuse to report. You take pot shots at us. That crash was bad. Don't tell me your head. Double quotes Nav. Thesa cut in quickly. He was lucky to survive. Maybe he can't remember what went on. That right, Loz? Nick stared as foggy pictures swung in his mind. Galaxies whirled, silver ships streaking, light across ochre deserts, men in blue drilling. It was real, the fears he had, the crazy dreams. It was all real, it wasn't a dream, Nick muttered. I really am First Spacer Laws, and I know you. Take it easy, boy, Narva said. You've had a bad time, Thesa, get some water. I'm all right. He looked at Narva, memories fluttering into place. The amnesia slipped aside, the veil began to rise. You're sure you're all right? Yes, Narva, things are beginning to make sense. Tell me about what I'm doing here, Narva cursed, Commander Imri, the stupid thistle bug. It's all his fault, all this fouled up thing is his doing. It would have been bad enough without your ship crashing. That just added to it. Luckily, Imri has been ordered back. Someone back home heard of his idiotic plan and the government jailed. What plan? Can single quotes double quotes. Thesa handed him water, and while he sipped, Narva explained. After we finished campaigning on Darkin and Thista, we applied for assignment in this galaxy. They wanted to split us up, but we got mad, so they shipped us here under Imri. After years, Terran time, studying on Mars, we became agents here. I got an easy one with Thesa. You, bigger plans. Damn him, but why are we spying on these people, Nav? For war? I hope not. The Terrans are close to space travel, and you know what that would do to our colonies in this galaxy. They're entering a primitive atomic civilization, like children with weapons. They're careless and likely to ruin the planet in wars. Sounds like their ancient history of our own planet, Loz said. True, you know what happened to us. Damned near lost the whole planet. Since Terra has life like ours, we could use it as a link in the supply chain. That is our main, but these people fear what they don't understand. Anything they can't understand, they kill. So right now, we're sending agents with instructions to probe. They're coming along rather well. Getting out of the trees, you might say, but we'll keep an eye on them. Laws finished the water. But what has this got to do with Imri and me? Apparently I was to take Nick Danson's place. That was Imri's agents, must live with people, get jobs, settle. Imri picked Danson, a footloose artist. All he had to do was snatch him, do plastic surgery on you, and put you in his place. You then could roam the planet without question. That's crazy, Laws said. I couldn't take Danson's place for life. He gambled too much. You're a good spacer. You follow orders. When you left the ship, you were Danson, processed so well, no one could tell. When you crashed, a blow on the head must have created amnesia. We had a time locating you. Anyhow, you're to go back to the ship soon. The new commander wants to talk with you. Nava grinned slyly. You'll want to talk to him too, it's Zark, our old friend from Thista Zark. Yes, I remember him, Loz paced the room. He remembered grey-haired, friendly Zark, and also Commander Zark's beautiful blonde daughter, Yella. I remember a lot now, Nav. It's too bad they didn't send him sooner. Things wouldn't be so messed up. It's not so bad, no. No, you'll probably be going back to the home planet now. I can't go back, Loz mused. I have to stay and see this through. It's personal now, personal. Nav was puzzled. What can be personal about a spacer and an alien race? He looked levelly. Because of Beth Danson. I can't leave this planet, Nav, because of Beth Danson. I'm in love with her, love. Nav exploded. In the heavy silence that followed, the two men stared at one another. Loz regarded his friend with calmness, but Navi's mouth was open in astonishment. The situation wasn't covered. Love, Nav choked finally, with an alien. You must be joking. I'm serious. That blow on the head must have been solid as a rock. Thesa just stared, without speaking a word. Beth is a wonderful woman and I'm in love with her. If the blow on the head did that ... Well then, I'm glad the ship cracked up. But, Lord, she's an alien, it's crazy. You couldn't live here. She couldn't live with you, Loz shrugged. What about Yella? Nava demanded. He didn't answer. Memories of the blonde woman with trim ankles, slim waist and large breasts floated back. Memories of evenings they'd shared under the stars. He sat fingering the thoughts without feeling. Finally he was aware Nav was speaking. Know how you feel, Loz, but forget it. You could never work anything out. Go on back to Yellow and forget about this alien. It doesn't matter how wonderful she is, nothing short of killing her husband would gain her for you. Loz smiled thinly. We can do that, too. He paused and looked thoughtful. What did Imri do with Danson? Nothing. He lives better than most spacers, under guard in your quarters. Commander Zark hasn't figured out what to do with him yet. That's what he wants to talk about. Have you a scout ship here? Certainly. We use them to make reports. No radio waves. How about a uniform? You can borrow one of Thesa's. You'd never get into mine. Fine. As soon as I'm attired, we'll see. Zark, grinning at Nav. Loz followed Thesa into the bedroom. Later, dressed in the uniform of a first spacer, Loz checked himself in the mirror, making sure he was dressed. Trousers blast neatly, stripes aligned, cuffs fastened, emblems on the collar, the patch of rank on his sleeve. Yes, he was set, precise. He grinned at Thesa. Feels good, he said. The sandy-haired spacer handed him the black leather belt with the auto pistol and cartridges. He buckled it on, feeling the weight drag at his right hip. Okay, Thesa asked. Loz nodded. Thanks for the loan, he said, and went out where Narvet, already dressed, awaited him. How's your head? Fine, let's go. Then, they walked wordlessly to the barn. The blonde snapped on a small light near the scout ship and Loz examined it closely. Climb in. Nav invited. I have to scan the area to be sure no one will see the takeoff. Loz leapt to the cockpit, dropped lightly into the seat, feet on pedals, hands fingering the controls. So much was coming back, remembrances each second. He was not Nicholas Danson. He was First Spacer Loz of the 8th, Terran Command, thrilled to the knowledge of who he was. It was slow, this strange process of regaining his mind, but it was coming along. He would soon be whole again, no longer some freak caught in the vortex between two worlds. Ready? Nav asked. Ready? Where's the starship? Bearing 200 for point 5, off-planet. We'll be there in no time. The barn door swung open as Nava started the scout ship and they moved out into the night, hovering. They hovered a foot off the barn floor until outside. Nava calmed the ship, working the Veri control expertly, and the craft whistled upward. The radar disclosed no aircraft in the area. Nava grinned at Loz and shoved the speed control, working the elevators as the scout ship streaked into the night sky. Home. Loz, watching the screen, saw the oblong shape of the mothership. He called out its position. Nava altered the course, whipping the scout ship onto a collision bearing. Close enough. They used their signal and heard it answered. The ship slipped in easily. The port opened in the starship's side. Nava guided the craft with tender hands, settled it on the floor. A positioner hooked a line and pulled it into the repair bins. The area was pressurized. They climbed out as repair men went to work. Narves slapped Loz on the arm. I'm going below for a drink. Join me. Loz shook his head. No, thanks. I'll talk to the commander first. Right, just don't tell him you're jilting his daughter for an alien, or he'll turn purple. Loz grinned, watched him stride away to the elevator, then walked off toward the forward end of the ship. He would find his future father-in-law, Commander Zark. Spacers saluted him in the traditional manner, hand clasped to hip holster, and it felt good. He had almost forgotten that. The guards stopped him outside the door, but when he explained, they nodded. One pressed a button, opening the door to the vestibule. Loz stepped inside and the door hummed shut. The vestibule was a small box-like room with a VC screen. He pressed the black button at the base. First spacer Loz to see the commander, he said as Zark's face blurred into focus. Come in, Loz, come in, Zark bellowed. The heavy door swung open and Loz stepped in, heels clicking, hand slapping the holster before the commander's desk. First spacer Loz reporting, Sir. Zark rose and came toward him. Loz, my son, how are you? They grabbed each other's shoulders, laughing like children. Despite his love for Beth and the trouble, Loz was happy. Let me look at you. It's been eons since Thista. Jealous fair dying to get her hands on you again, he winked. And I imagine you are, too. She's here. A ray of panic touched him. Not that I know, unless a ship came in last I heard. She was waiting for a ship from Mars. She swears she get you this time. Or she's going home to find an old mush shell gatherer. Loz laughed with Zark, who pulled a flask of wine from his desk. He poured 2 tumblers of milk white wine, winking. From the home planet, Malowine, I'll wager you haven't tasted it. Not since Thista, Loz said, accepting the tumbler. He raised it to you, sir, and your daughter. May she be spared from marrying a mush shell gatherer. They drank the mellow wine. Now then, Loz, tell me what that fool Imri did. He told the commander everything, leaving out Beth. Zark's eyes burned with indignation. I'll see Imri tortured by Thistians for this trick. The old man stopped his tirade. You know what this means, Loz. I'm afraid to guess. The wrecked ship can be covered up. Terran politics help. We'll have men in Washington mumble. They'd call it experimental aircraft. Remove everyone except our people, then move the ship. But these Terrans are another matter. If they can get people to listen, we're in trouble. Perhaps, Loz said, if they were believed, it would speed relations. Zark shook his head. No, they're not ready. Half believe in superstition. The other half understands science. Others tried same tactics, were not believed. To tell the truth, I'm not sure what to do. We could continue the bluff. Zark lifted brows. You mean continue as our agent down there? Yes, sir. The crash supported the story I told Danson's wife. I really had amnesia. No one knows anything, except the ship. Bryce found the watch, but we could trick his memory. It'd be risky. Might be best to kill both and send you back to the Terran woman. After bluffing Imri's plan, we arrange an accident with real Danson. Does the woman suspect anything? I don't think so. Loz said she's too happy to have me back. Zark smiled, clamped a hand to his shoulder. You're tired, rest. Use first space of Thesa's quarters. Danson is in yours. And Bryce, unconscious, in the hospital. The shock has him recalling every old wives' tale. All right, sir. I'll get to my quarters. Thank you. I'll send Yellow if she comes in. Thank you. Loz finished dressing himself, buckling the black belt about his waist. Then he looked down at the still form of Zark's daughter, Yellow, golden in the light of the overhead bulb. She slept like a baby. He blew a kiss to her and let his breath out in a rush. If everything goes right, I'll be back before you know I'm gone. If not, he let it hang there and checked the loads in the auto pistol. Then he went out into the bright light of the corridor. The guard merely accepted his auto pistol. When he stopped at the door to Danson's prison, Loz gave it to him and the spacer opened the door. Nick Danson rubbed the beard on his face and grinned. Forget something, first spacer? He asked. When the door closed, Loz said, Shut up. Danson blinked. Sit down. Danson sat. How badly do you want off this ship? How badly do you want to make commander? Danson counted and lit a cigarette. You willing to risk your life? Why not? It isn't worth a hell of a lot anyhow. Loz reached into Danson's shirt pocket, found the pack of cigarettes and filched one. Nick touched a match to it and Loz dragged the smoke into his lungs slowly. He could see the Terran regarding him suspiciously. "What's the play, First Spacer?" Danson asked. "You're dead, Nick, if you stay on this ship. That's the truth. That can be either literally or figuratively speaking. I don't know." "It all depends on Zark's plans for you," Nick snorted. "Hell, it can't be worse than Imri's plans. It'll be better. Zark is a just man, but he hasn't much feeling for Trans ... Yeah, I know." "The God theory," Loz nodded. "Your concern touches me. But why?" Loz grinned. "I've been asking myself that same question, and while I can get answers that make sense to me, I doubt they'd make sense to you. Let's just say I like you. That's rich, but I'll buy it. All I've got to lose is my chains ... and your memory. Come again." Loz sucked on the cigarette. "You can't talk except to your wife. Who'd believe me anyhow? It's bigger than that. If you talk to anyone, I'll kill you. You don't make sense." "Why not kill me now? Imri made a mistake. I got caught. This whole operation is fouled up because of what he did. If we don't try to put things back, it'll be tough." For the first time, Terra has possession of a scout ship. Not only that, but they know it. They're hot on our trail. If enough Terrans get wise to us, we'll be in trouble. You've read my journals. You know what it's like up here. My planet needs Earth as a trade base. If you people ever wake up, we'll help each other a hell of a lot. Maybe that's why I want to take you back to your wife. Enough." Danson nodded. "I guess so. I know enough to tell you're either honest or a damned good liar." "What's the plot?" "The plot is to get you and Bryce back to Earth ... Bryce, Nolan Bryce. He's here," Loz nodded. "He found your watch where my scout ship cracked up and guessed who I was before I did. He came in shooting. My people kidnapped him, both Beth and I thought I was you. She tried to help me figure things out. Bryce wanted me dead." "Great," Danson muttered bitterly. "In any event, I think I can get Bryce to the scout ship. I'm relying on you to spring yourself out and get down to the hangar. You'll pass for me easily, okay? How do I get past the guard? I'll fix it. If I can't, I'll be back, okay? Buck Rogers." "It's your show," Loz grinned. "Keep your fingers crossed," he said and left. "I won't do it," Nava said flatly. He lifted his glass and swallowed deep. "You've got to," Loz insisted. "It's the only way to straighten things out, you know it. You talk to Zark. How can I tell him? What should I say? That I love a Terran and want her happy, thunder and lightning? They're only Terrans, forget it, Loz. This woman will find someone else. If you take them back, they'll talk." "No, they won't." Danson understands. "He knows how badly we want to trade with his people. He'll help us ... What about Bryce?" Nava snorted. "Bryce can be handled by Danson. If not, we'll threaten him. I want you to take the guard's place outside the cell. Give me time to steal a scout ship." "Yes," Nava groaned. "If I keep doing these goofy things, I'll never make commander. Not even vice commander," Loz smiled. "Don't worry, if things work out, you'll have had a hand in opening a new planet for our trade rockets," Nava sighed. "All right, I'll do it, but I should have my head examined." Loz grinned, finished his drink. "It'll work out, Narvis. You'll probably get a medal, a prison cell, likely." Narvis snorted. Loz slapped his arm and left the wardroom. He had a lot to do, and damned little time to do it in. Loz left the wardroom and walked along the hollow, brightly lighted corridors toward the hospital where Detective Nolan Bryce was being kept a prisoner. He would be the tough one of the two, because his mental roots were still very close to the witchcraft-believing parents who had given him birth. Bryce was a Pennsylvanian, fairly intelligent, but like all Pennsylvanians he had an unconscious closeness with tradition, stoutly denying superstition yet avoiding ladders. How would he react to Loz's proposal? Would he stubbornly tell him to go to hell, or would he cooperate? It was a difficult thing to predict with certainty. Loz shoved the door to the hospital open and grinned at the spacer behind the desk. "You've a Terran here?" he asked. The spacer nodded and set down his papers. "Yes, sir, we have one. He's in the care of Dr. Zulo. What are they doing to him?" "I'm not sure. I imagine they're giving him rehabilitative treatment." Loz grinned. Apparently the method by which they had snatched the detective had unnerved him. "I'd like to see him. Where can I find Dr. Zulo?" "I'm sorry, Sir, only authorized personnel can interrogate him. I'm authorized, I believe. I captured him. I'm Loz. The young spacer flushed, embarrassed. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't know who you were. You may go through there. Straight down the corridor until you reach the 4th ward. Dr. Zullo will be there. I think so, thank you. Loz shoved the door open and walked down the long hall toward the 4th ward, not quite sure how to spring the Terran from hospital. But it had to be done. If he failed and they all ended up dead or in Vista penal colonies, the trade program with Terra would be set back 50 years, wasted. The wrecked scout ship could be covered up, but the loss of Bryce and Danson would not go unnoticed, especially when Beth spilled her story about the cabin. Terra might not corroborate her story, yet they were on verge of space travel and were warlike. They could cause all kinds of unnecessary trouble in space. It had to work. He had to get both of them back to the planet, even if it meant stopping a slug from an auto rifle. He reached the door to the 4th ward. Inside, Dr. Zullo was the only man in the small anteroom. What can I do for you, First Spacer? I'm Dr. Zullo, I'm Loz. They stared at each other. The doctor's small bird-like eyes studied his face. Loz, hi, you the one who went down there? I was in the accident, in a sense. I brought Bryce up here. You know him, yes. At least I think I know him better than you people do. Then perhaps you can help us. He arrived in acute shock, almost violent. He kept screaming about witchcraft and Terran nonsense. We treated him as best we could and he stopped acting like a wildman. How is he now? Loz asked. Numb. He's sitting on his bed, staring at the wall. He isn't insane. I don't think so, but he's strained and shocked. He's not of the same structure as the other. Loz sighed. I'll see what I can do. Commander Zark has plans for him. Another switch. The doctor's disgust showed. An accident, I believe, from bad to worse. Loz motioned for the doctor to show him the Terran. Zullo nodded toward a door at the far end of the ward. A blue-uniformed spacer stood guard before it. I want to see the Terran, spacer, Loz said briskly. The guard opened the door. Loz stepped inside, listening to the lock click behind him. Bryce sat on the bed. He stared at the wall, jaws tight, determined to betray nothing. His fingers laced, his clothing rumpled. Nolan, Bryce swung his eyes to him. I'll kill you. Nolan, listen, I'm here to help you. You've done a lot of helping, spaceman. I know what you want, Earth. Don't be silly. I want to help you and Danson back. I don't need you. Shut up and listen. I'm risking my neck. In a minute I'll call the guard in. We'll take his uniform, head for a scout ship, and get you home. This is some kind of trick. Do you want to go, or stay here? I don't have time to lecture you. I'll leave it up to Danson. Play it your way, Bryce said. Okay. Loz called through the door, pistol ready. Come in here, spacer. The guard entered. What is it, First Spacer? Him. As he turned, Loz struck hard. The guard grunted and dropped, his auto rifle clattering. If all was right, Danson was already heading to the hangar. Come on, Nolan, get into these clothes. They stripped the guard quickly. Soon Bryce wore the blue uniform, buckled the cartridge belt and gripped the auto rifle eagerly. Hand me his helmet, he said. Loz picked it up to hand over. He saw the punch coming but too late. Bryce's fist smashed into his face and sent him flying onto the bed. Thanks, Bryce snarled. Loz rolled to the floor, head reeling. He heard the door close and Bryce's running feet fading. You damned fool, he thought. You can't get off this ship alone. He staggered up and started running after the Terran, drawing his pistol as he ran. Loz dashed down the hallway into the main corridor, passing the limp body of the doctor and the young spacer who had been on duty at the desk. Apparently, Bryce had come into the place fast, swinging the auto rifle like it was a club. Both of the men were unconscious, but there was no blood in sight. Crazy fool, Loz said aloud and slammed the door as he dashed into the corridor. Bryce was running blindly, his footsteps echoing off the metal walls. Bryce, stop! Loz fired the auto pistol over the fleeing man's head. Bryce stopped and whirled, dropping to one knee to bring up the rifle he carried. He snapped off a fast burst and Loz dived across the polished corridor to hug the wall. He rolled, pistol zeroed on the Terran, but he couldn't shoot. Nolan Bryce, however, had no scruples about firing. He cursed as the bullets missed. Beyond him, the spacers came running down the hole toward Bryce. One of them fired. Bryce whirled, spotted them, and brought up his rifle. Gunfire boomed in the hole like a machine gun being fired in a steel cave. Loz saw a spacer slam backwards, rolling crazily from the impact of Bryce's bullet. The Terran hunched over in a crouch, shooting from the hip like a gunfighter. Suddenly Bryce jerked upright, spun crazily in two directions at once and fell flopping to the floor. The auto rifle clattered from his hands as he dropped. Loz rose slowly and shoved his gun back into its holster. He walked to where Bryce stared at the ceiling through unseeing eyes. A damn shame, but his fault. One spacer looked at him. "Are you all right, sir?" Loz nodded. "Is he a spacer?" another asked, eyeing the uniform. "An escaped Terran," Loz said. He remembered Danson was probably down at the hangar. "Don't jettison this body until I give you orders." "Put it in quick freeze." "Yes, sir," came the reply, but Loz was already heading down the corridor. Nothing could be done for Bryce now. Perhaps it was better this way. The shooting had helped clear his path. He found a vacant elevator and took it down to the hangar level. The door opened and he raced out, nearly upsetting a startled spacer in his headlong rush. He had no idea how long it would be before Navi's release of Danson was discovered. Bursting into the repair bin area, he glanced toward the blast tubes. Incoming ships used the large port at the mothership's side, but to leave, a small craft had to be installed into a blast tube on either side of the hangar. Scanning frantically, he spotted Danson, disguised in first spacer blue and yellow, standing near a blast tube. He hoped no mechanic noticed the dangerous trick. Loz grabbed a mechanic by the arm. "Spacer, I'm on an urgent mission. Where can I get a ship?" The youth thought a moment, then pointed. "That tube, sir." "Thank you. I'll help you rig it," the spacer offered. "Never mind. I'll do it myself." "Go back to work." The puzzled spacer obeyed, still glancing back. Loz motioned to Danson and hurried toward the tube door. Mechanics turned their heads as the Terran ran. "Hurry," Loz urged, yanking the door open wide. Danson reached him, panting. "Where's Bryce?" Loz slammed the door, whirled the spider lock. Through the port, spacers pointed and gestured toward the tube. "Where's Bryce?" "He's dead," Loz snapped. A vice commander had entered the hangar. "Get in the ship, fast." Outside, workers milled like a swarm of bees. Danson stood frozen beside the scout ship, disbelief in his eyes. "Get in," Loz shouted. "Not without Bryce." Nick's face was wild with anger and refusal. "I'm not leaving Nolan. Get out of my way," he lunged. Loz swung hard with a savage 1-2 left fist to the stomach, right smashing Nick's jaw. Danson slammed into the ship, crumpling unconscious. Loz wasted no time, hauling his limp body up the ladder into the cockpit and strapping him in tightly. The emergency door loomed at the far end of the tube. If he pushed the wall button now, 30 seconds later the port would open, sucking the air into space. Anyone without pressurization would die. He stuffed Danson into the seat, left the canopy open, leapt down, and slammed his hand against the wall button. Loz, 3 mechanics had slipped inside. Panicked, he drew his pistol and fired. The blast echoed like a firecracker in a steel drum. They bolted in fear. Loz slammed the button, locks clanged. He had 30 seconds now. Diving into the cockpit, he slammed the canopy shut, twisted the lock, and hit the controls. Engines whined to life as the massive port rolled open, stars blazing beyond. He shoved the throttle forward and the scout ship surged into the void of space. His hands worked the stick, feet kicking pedals, rolling the ship toward Earth's glowing ball. Behind him, the mothership lit up in furious flashes of light. Tiny sparks lifted, fluttered, and followed like a swarm of bees, streaking after him across the blackness. They were giving chase. He had thought there would be a pursuit. He kicked at the rudder pedals and threw the stick. The scout ship rolled and plunged toward the ice cap. At 16,000 meters ph, the rocket was little more than a guided missile. He knew when he reached the ice cap, he'd have to throttle back. Beside him, Nick Danson's head lolled as the ship streaked toward Earth, for scout ships fanned out behind, holding him at bay at 16,500 meters p.h. He wished he could stymie the chase, but starships weren't built to be sabotaged. Designers had fitted them with every device to prevent crippling. I've got to lose them, he thought feverishly. Long enough to get Danson back to the cabin and get out again. After that, they can have me. He looked back, trying to tell if they meant to fire. Weapons weren't a scout ship's strength. Each carried a rocket launcher but relied on speed. The heavy caps of Greenland's ice loomed before him. He hoped to lose them in the white wilderness. They saw his intent and poured power into their ships. Loz flattened into a shallow dive and shoved the throttle. 24,000 meters. P.H. The ice rose fast. One scout ship closed and fired a rocket at him. He kicked the rudder, threw the ship left. It fluttered aside as the rocket burned and arced beneath his belly. He cut speed, yanking at the stick. The maneuver was too fast. They flashed past in silver streaks, struggling to correct. He sliced toward the Azores, whirling atmosphere ripping at his hull. They'd soon have to break radio silence. At 15,000 miles per hour, a microsecond's delay could smash two ships into atomized wreckage. Still they held. He shoved the stick forward, diving toward the ocean. He had the advantage. They had to anticipate his moves to get him into their sights to fire. A rocket speared toward him. He flicked right in a slow roll, barely evading it. Sickened, he flattened out 50 feet above the Atlantic's waves. Then he firewall throttled, racing north. The speed gauge froze at 24,500 meters. The others pushed their throttles, barely keeping him within range. They couldn't fire. He was too fast. Any rocket would be outrun, or worse, they'd fly into their own weapon. That was his greatest shield in the chase. Nick awoke, staring wide-eyed at the blur of ocean. His mouth opened. Laws looked ahead. A freighter loomed. He yanked the ship up, screaming over it. Behind, the others streaked over. He imagined the terrified crew, knocked flat by the wash of ships. Danson had fainted. Ahead lay a heavy cloud cover. He tore into the clouds, dodging recklessly, changing course to shake pursuit. Bursting out the far side, he saw no ships. He streaked for Pennsylvania. With Danson still out cold, he throttled back and hovered over the mountain cabin. It looked like a toy house in the clearing, sunlit and deserted. He landed in a nearby clearing, cut engines, threw back the canopy, unbuckled Danson, and slung him over his shoulder toward the quiet cabin. Inside, he dumped Nick on the couch and started pulling off the borrowed uniform. A footstep sounded. He whirled around, heart leaping in shock. Beth. She stood there and stared at the two of them, her face showing she was not sure which one was her husband. Loz rose, unsure what to say or do. Beth. Don't explain, Loz, she said calmly, as though men from outer space visited her cabin every afternoon without surprise or alarm. I brought him back, Loz began awkwardly, feeling foolish. He wondered vaguely how she had known the truth about him being a spaceman from the start. She came closer, eyes boring into his. Why did you bring him back? You could have come by yourself and continued the whole thing without him. Realization dawned on him slowly. You know about me. How? Double quotes, I'll tell you later. Why did you bring him back? She demanded, calm but firm. You want him, don't you? It couldn't work out. Any fool can see that. He gripped her shoulders. It wasn't supposed to happen this way, Beth. We never figured on the scout ship being wrecked, and I never figured on falling in love with you. That's why you brought him back, because you love me. He nodded, emotion trembling within him. I thought about taking his place, Beth, but I knew it wouldn't work. It was half crazy from the start. She smiled faintly. Don't be sorry, I'm glad I know the truth. Now Bryce vanishing doesn't seem so ridiculous. She looked around. Where is he? Dead. Her eyes widened. Laws explained. I disobeyed orders. When I tried to free Bryce, he went berserk and one of the spacers shot him down. Poor Nolan, she whispered tearfully. Then sharply, you acted against orders. He nodded. What will happen to you? Nothing. It'll be all right. But Beth, how did you know? Who told you? I did. Laws spun to see a husky blonde in a dress suit at the door. His hand dropped to his pistol. Don't bother, Laws, the blonde grinned. I'm not about to draw. Who are you? Here, I'm Cartwell, Secret Service, but really I'm First Space Nesso. You told her, Laws asked. The blonde nodded. I had to. She was ready to call police after you vanished. Only thing to keep her quiet was the truth. Laws bit his lip. How do things stand? Not too bad, Cartwell said. I arranged to have the wreck hauled off. It'll be hush-hush, then forgotten. What about Bryce? Unavoidable. We'll cover by saying he got lost searching with rescue squads. People will draw their own conclusions. Risky, Laws muttered. It'll work. Cartwell replied. Unless you have a better idea. Laws shook his head. You handle things down here, I've my problems up there. I'd better get Danson's uniform off and move. Beth caught his arm. Let him keep it, Laws. I promise it won't fall into wrong hands. Cartwell nodded. Let them have it. Cartwell agreed. They're on our side, all right, Laws said. He paused. I'll be going ... Beth linked her arm in his warmly. I'd like to walk to the ship with you. I'd like that. He grinned at Cartwell, then led her outside into sunlight. They walked silently to the clearing. At the ship, Beth pulled his head down and kissed him. Goodbye, Laws. I'll come back. Beth, one day our peoples will be friends and we'll meet again. I hope so. He looked skyward and saw two scout ships flashing above the clouds. My escort, he grinned. You'll have trouble ... No. I'll marry the commander's daughter. Is she beautiful? Yes, he said, catching Beth's hurt glance. He smiled softly. Almost as beautiful as you. He kissed her again, then leapt to the cockpit. He motioned her away from the blast area and eased the ship up above the trees. She waved, looking very small among them. He lifted a hand in farewell. Then he swung the ship upward, slamming the throttle forward to head back to the starship, leaving Beth behind in the clearing, tears bright in her eyes. In the end, the love lives of the gods were never just about passion or pleasure. They shaped myths, started wars, and even changed the fate of mortals. Behind every affair, every secret desire, lay the roots of power, jealousy, and destiny itself. If you enjoyed this journey into the hidden side of mythology, let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you'd like to keep exploring more stories like this, a simple like and subscribe will help this channel grow and bring you even more legends worth telling. Thank you for being here, and now, until the next story, goodbye.